Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks very much for joining us today. Hopefully all the technology is working as it should do. I've got Chris with me today and also Muriel, and we're going to be talking about the 5 strategies for growth in times of massive market disruption. Hopefully lots of value to be shared. We can see a number of people already logged on, which is fantastic. what would be really good is if you could just type in the chat window, there you can see the screen okay, and also hear audio. Obviously, this is the first time we're running over Facebook Live and YouTube Live as a real-time experience. Previously, we were having to record it and publish it. So I'd be really interested to see what you guys have got to say. So if you could just confirm, that'd be absolutely fantastic. So, Miro, just to confirm, and Chris, you can hear me on your side okay, can you?
Yep.
Yeah, good. Excellent. Yeah, lovely.
Yes, right. I can hear you, Rupert.
Anthony, welcome this afternoon. Thank you very much for joining us. Can see some others logging as we speak. So without further ado, we'll get started. Now, there is about a 40-second delay between what we say and what I think you see on your side. So if there are any challenges, do let us know. I'm just checking. Can you see the slide and also our pictures on the screen as well? If people could just confirm that, please. On my side, it's showing as being fine, but I'm not sure what you guys are seeing.
I can see it clearly, Rupert.
Okay, yeah. Right, good. Okay, Steve, welcome. Thank you very much, Stuart. Glad you've been able to make it this afternoon as well. Right, so in which case, what we'll do is assume all the technology is working. If any of you have any problems, just type it in the chat window and we'll do our best to help. And we'll go from there. So Steve, welcome, and that's Steve Lloyd as well. Lisa, welcome this afternoon. So let's get moving as far as today is concerned. So I'm having to use a couple of different computers here, so just bear with me. This is what we plan to cover as part of today's session. Fundamentally is how to deal with the dreaded C word, and I think we both know what that is, understanding what may be holding you back, and also your customers back in terms of how they engage with you, looking at what you may need to do with your products and your markets, and whether you should be looking at any forward pivots to do with your business, and look what other people generally are doing, and look at what actions you should be taking at the moment so that you're remembered by your customers forever. And in fact, I was having a fantastic conversation with Anthony about this yesterday afternoon over this very point. And what steps can you take now to grow your business and ride the wave as the market returns? And there will also be a little bit of a session about good money versus bad money. And we'll be talking about some of the newer technologies of which are available to us today to use in the toolbox. So what would be really good as part of this is if you could just indicate in the chat window what you're really passionate about, what you do, and how you like to make a difference, and why as well. So if each one of you could very kindly type into the chat window. And what we want to do is just make this as interactive as possible with everyone this afternoon. We may not get round to everyone, but we're going to do our best. So please do go through that. So what you're passionate about, what you do, and how you like to make a difference, i.e., in effect, what is your why, what really drives you at this point in time. So moving on from that, just a little bit of an introduction about myself, then Chris and Miro, I'm going to come to you if that's okay. Business Growth Bureau was formed about 6 years ago. I personally love working with our members and clients to make a massive difference, and also believe in the importance of what I class as circular relationships, where everyone wins. And that's even more important now than ever. So it's not just about potential customers. It's also about how you look after your clients, the suppliers you've got relationships with, how you make them feel valued as well. It's your own staff, your associates, your partners, your investors. Try and look at all those individual parts. If you can think a way of how to make all those different people feel really good, the fantastic thing is you end up with a very engaged community of people who actually just want to see you succeed. And for me, a win-win is very cheap talk. A lot of larger companies will tend to talk about that, and it can quite often mean something very different. I'm talking about something where we're all much more working closer together for the benefit of us all, if that makes sense. Now, Chris, over to you. Could you very kindly give us a little bit of an introduction about yourself, and also then Mira will be ready as well for that one. So, Chris, tell us.
Thanks, Rupert. Hi, I'm Chris Cooper. My work is that I help leaders and teams to develop and grow and build highly engaged workforces, and that's really my passion and my purpose. I'm also a broadcaster. I've hosted my own radio show on Voice America, the Business Elevation Show, for nearly 9 years. And I'm the co-author of The Power to Get Things Done, whether you feel like it or not, published by Penguin Random House. So collaborating with Rupert here and doing the interviewing and hopefully contributing and adding value today.
Yeah, definitely. And in fact, Chris, your book is probably needed more than ever at the moment, isn't it? Because it is all about motivation, isn't it? So that's really good. Thanks, Chris. Muriel, tell us a bit about you.
Well, hello everyone. Nice for you to join us. I've worked with Rupert for many years, haven't we, Rupert? We worked together. What I deal with is really everything that Rupert can't manage to do, as he's obviously very stretched, and things that he doesn't like doing. I work very closely with our clients and give them all the training they need and the support, and obviously with the team that we have to make sure that everything runs smoothly.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Muriel. Muriel, I think one of the things you said last week is you'd love to make a difference again, don't you, with clients who actually care really passionately about all the clients and members that we work with.
Yes.
Yeah. Let's just pick a few comments that people have said here. As we are learning this new technology, so bear with us. So let's see if I can bring, there we go. That's what Anthony's just said a moment ago. Yeah, lovely. Farron, that's welcome on board today. And Anthony, you've also indicated this. So you mentioned about you love to help your customers manage their properties and their clients' properties and take the pain out of managing portfolios of suppliers. Anthony is a consummate professional as far as that's concerned, has got a great mindset. And who else have we got here? We've got Lisa. Hello, Lisa. Lovely, so an associate, I'm a leader, coach, and wise. Lovely. Okay, that's fantastic, Lisa. Thank you for sharing that. Stephen Lloyd, thank you very much for sharing that. So it's very nice to interact like that. So I'm very much appreciative of that. So let's move on a little bit from there. Now, we've been talking over the last few weeks about the 90-day challenge, and that's been to do about mindset, health and fitness, supporting you, supporting others, investing in your future and growing your business. And there's something which I'd very much like to just touch on very briefly now. And we've been very honoured by this fantastic gentleman over here. I'm pleased to hear today that he's been made a colonel, which is a great credit to him. This screen grab, which was taken, it was only 2 weeks ago at 8:30 in the morning. At that point, it was £12 million he'd raised for the NHS. And as of about 10 o'clock this morning, he'd already raised £31 million through his cause. And all very simple. He just set out a very simple aim to get 1,000 people to put in money as I raised £1,000 as part of his walk. And look what he's been able to do. Fantastic person. Now, what I hadn't realised is we ourselves, as part of this initiative, issued like a 90-day challenge, and our understanding was that this would be open for the next couple of months. I understand this fund is actually closing tonight, so if any of you do want to put funds into this excellent cause, please do so. And what Business Growth Bureau has done as a bit of a contribution on behalf of our clients and our members is we made a donation today of £250 on behalf of everyone. And that was part of the 90-day challenge. And we just want to make sure that went into this funding round with Colonel Tom. So major congratulations to him. And I'm sure we're all very appreciative for his fantastic contribution. So really, this is the part now where things start to swap over. Unfortunately, I'm in the hot seat now. So over to you, Chris, if that's all right, where I think you're going to be asking me some questions, and I'll be very pleased to interject as best as I can.
Absolutely, good to be here. And if I occasionally dip out, Muriel might have to dip in. My broadband struggles a little bit with the technology, but Rupert, lovely to have the opportunity to talk with you. And am I still here, Rupert?
Yes, we can see you, Chris. We can see and hear you.
I just saw myself. Everyone had disappeared, but lovely to have the opportunity to talk with you. And for those of you who don't know, Rupert is the founder of Business Growth Bureau. He's somebody I've known now for several years. He's somebody with a big heart, somebody with great sort of technical talents with things like LinkedIn and growing businesses, and has grown several businesses in the past and has been through the ups and downs of developing and growing business. And Rupert, I think we've got a number of kind of questions, a lot of questions and points that have come in from people today. So thank you for all of that input. But I think what we want to do today is obviously focus on some of those. And of course, it's very clear, in terms of what's on people's minds right now, that COVID-19, this current situation, people are asking questions, their income's dried up, what can I do? People are anxious about the fact that the marketing's not really working at the moment. So Rupert, how, from your perspective, do you think that we deal with this C word at the moment? How do you think, what are some of the things you would recommend to people maybe to consider?
Chris, thank you very much for the question. Hopefully it's everyone can see all three of us now, so I was trying to get used to the platform itself, so bear with me a second on that. I think fundamentally, as part of a show we covered a few weeks ago, we talked about how to take on the reptilian brain and basically to win. And I think really this is the situation we're in now. What we're coming across is speaking to a lot of our existing clients, a lot of our members at the moment, and not with a view to try and sell or anything like that, because at this point it's about being very sensitive to people's current situation. One of the things I've noticed though is a lot of people are very much going into themselves. It's a bit of a flight to safety, and that's because obviously the reptilian part or the emotional part of our brain is programmed to work that way. Now that is great in a sort of a normal, as things might have been 10,000 years ago, but it's not so good in times like this, because in effect this is where the logical part of the brain really needs to be able to take on the emotional part of the brain, and fundamentally think about how we can actually look outwards rather than inwards. Now, obviously, if you've got a range of products or services and you want to redevelop some of those, yes, of course, it's a good time to do that now. But what I would say is that predominantly what you should be doing is engaging with lots of people who you perhaps haven't spoken with for a while. Everything doesn't necessarily have to be transactional. It's about just building on those relationships. And sometimes it's tough. If we went back a few days ago, Chris, something that, we had a spate of very nice weather, and we just got rain over the last 2 days, or certainly down south we have. And of course, it's very easy. You think, well, actually, there's not a lot going on at the moment. It'd be much easier to just do things which we love doing and focus on it instead. And I made a conscious effort, and Muriel's making a conscious effort, and also Sam as well has been helping with this. So Chris, we're trying to tell me to shut up.
Well, kind of interesting, Rupert. I think that's great.
Yes,
and that's really kind of helpful. But I think there's a few areas, right now that we're kind of dealing with. So we're dealing with, there's the personal side, isn't there? And we've all got things going at home. We're getting used to kind of working from home. And some of us maybe, are being impacted by this. I have two of my close friends have lost parents to COVID-19 in the last week. Got that to deal with. My wife's just bought more kind of cards, bulk bereavement cards today to be sending out to people. So we've got that to deal with. Then we've got to deal with our businesses. And then we're thinking about the marketplace. And then we're thinking about our contribution to the planet. So is there maybe, we've got to consider all of those four options, four elements in our kind of strategy to deal with COVID, the mental side and also the sort of practical side.
Yes, and I think that's a really good point. And certainly when speaking to people, what I've noticed is that, it's very much a case of actually finding how people are to start with, because we don't know what is actually going on in their world at this particular point in time. And I 100% agree with you on that, Chris. I think we just have to be really sensitive to that one.
It's true. We don't always know people's story, do we? So I think, you're right. I think it's kind of asking questions, finding out how people are, and maybe realize there might be more going on with people than we realize if we get a short shrift from somebody. But what I'm certainly finding is people are very open. A lot of people are very open about what's really going on. And I think you're right. It's important to be part of that support, isn't it? To help people and connect with them right now, and just be there for them as much as we can in this period.
Yeah, no, 100%. And, it really is about giving back. And, I feel very honoured the way that people have engaged, particularly today. I can see a lot of comments coming in as we speak, and I hope we'll get to a lot of those fairly shortly. So fundamentally, it is really about also trying to look outwards at the moment. So, as well as being reflective and understanding what's sort of going on, it is actually as much as possible engaging with people out there, having conversations, make people feel valued, and everything around that, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Actually, there's something that I found very helpful, and it was our guest Michael Romling who shared this a few conversations ago, and he said that yesterday is history, tomorrow is mystery, but today's a gift. And what I found really, really helpful in that is actually, by creating structure in my day and being very, so I'm realizing one of the weaknesses I maybe had was structure and kind of time management, but really creating that tight routine, then I'm being effective and I'm using right now as best I can. So I think it's maybe time as well to address some of those disciplines. And I think we get more, we can, use this time to become really effective. And we're going to talk about that around business models and things like that. So maybe when the lockdown does happen, we can really push forward. So I think it's a real special time. In some ways, it's an opportunity to press the pause button. Do you think?
Yes, I would say my only reservation with that is that is also the easy thing to do. This is one of the things I really encourage people to do. But my real concern for the moment, I have for a lot of people, is that because they're so busy looking inwards, what's actually happening is that as things start to come back, they're just going to miss the wave. Other people have actually perhaps looked at certain aspects of the business and how so they can reposition it. And that's my real concern, because the trouble is, if financially they're struggling now, what you can almost guarantee is in 2 or 3 months' time, they're going to be in a worse position rather than a better position. So I think this is one big word of warning there, is that it is also very much about looking outwards. So that the bits which are more around thought and self-development and all these other parts around that, and product development, personally, I feel a lot of that should be done out of what I class as core hours. Core hours when you should be speaking to potential customers or existing clients or advocates or supporters. We should ideally be doing in the daytime when we know we can get hold of people. But that's my perception. Chris, you might disagree. Muriel, you might disagree. Be interested in a conversation about that one.
I'm with you. I think you've got to work around your natural rhythms when you're most awake. You might be working harder at the moment. I was just chatting to somebody who's working 6 till 6 at the moment, and in 55-minute blocks. And I think that can be effective. We've got to get lots done, but I think there's a bit of time in there which is about planning and self-reflection. So I've been spending time planning, but I'm talking to more people and more customers than ever before. And something I found helpful this morning was last week I got put on hold by one particular client, which was a little bit of a surprise for monetary, just for 3 months. They want to continue after that, and I felt quite concerned that they need help right now, and one individual in particular. So they put me on hold, and the MD called me this morning all apologetic, and I said, look, I'll do this for free. It's so important to you. I'll help you. At which point he said, look, we can't have you working for free. Can you put a proposal in for that component, and we'll see if we can get it through the business. So that was quite nice to actually, just by offering to give something for free, that something came back. But
yeah, and I think that's an example that I think also it comes across as being very authentic and caring again. And most organisations, the decent ones anyway, will recognise that. And at the end of the day, someone like yourself, Chris, as well, is people are interested in a long-term relationship with you, aren't they? So, and certainly when we're working with clients, we like to feel we're making a difference. Fundamentally, that's what's really important. Yeah. So, Muriel, I'm not really following the chat at all. Sorry, Chris, to interrupt. Are you interacting with people through the chat at the moment? And it's
I've got there's no way I can type any answers, and I was just dealing with a couple of people who were having trouble logging in, but that's all sorted.
Right, good, okay. But
I am keeping an eye on the questions.
Yeah, so Chris, in a minute, if you agree, perhaps we could, I think at the moment, do you have access to chat on your side, Chris, or not? Can you see it?
I'm seeing some live comments, and I'm not sure.
Okay.
Yeah,
what we'll do is in a minute. It may be because I've got
Facebook though, actually.
Yeah. So no worries. We can come to that in a moment. But sorry, Chris, back over to you again. Sorry.
Yeah. So what what do you think what might be holding you back at the moment, and what might also be holding customers back, do you think? What might be the key challenges that we need to be aware of?
Right. Well, I think there's a real issue over finance in many cases at the moment. Clearly, if you've got, if you're, I think we all know very well, your son runs a gym, doesn't he, Muriel? And obviously they've had to close that down temporarily. I'm assuming Muriel, not sharing anything confidential here, but
no, not at all.
Yeah, he was able to gain access to a cash grant, wasn't he, from the government? So I believe that was very helpful. And so that's a really good example of someone who's very entrepreneurial, who's been able to get some form of government help, which has been assistance. Of course, you've got the fellow scheme, which is helping. I think people have got a concern as well is whether the support business is going to get is going to be enough at this present point in time, especially if this period of lockdown is extended. And this is why, again, I go back to the fact is that we got to be careful we don't rely too much on government as well, because there's only a certain amount of money in the pot. There's millions of businesses at the moment which are probably not going to get financial support and help. So we're largely out there on our own, and it's about just trying to do what we can to bring the opportunities through as best as we can, I guess. Obviously, we're hoping next week we'll have a little bit more news on the what the Chancellor's talking about in the last few days, which probably will help a lot of micro businesses. So a bit more on that next week, hopefully.
Yeah, I think my sphere of work, I'm finding that some of the challenges for people is much about home working and ensuring people are, obviously we've been through a process of furlough, and it's ensuring those people are working well from home. I think time management and things like that, doing things effectively, how to maybe utilize online video and content like we're doing now to engage the team during the day, end of the day, keeping morale up, keeping the fun and energy going as well. And at the same time, maybe how we continue with some of them to develop people. Then on the backdrop of all of that, I think some of them I'm finding are waiting to see if they're going to lose any big clients, which is why I found in one or two cases I've been being put on hold until that situation is kind of clear. And you mentioned finance there. I was talking to a finance director yesterday who'd just I'd spoken to him 24 hours earlier as well, and he said he'd spoken to 25 people clients who said they couldn't afford to pay. Now this was in particular talking about showrooms of small kind of car sort of dealerships. It's not really to every marketplace, but obviously there's that worry coming through too, I think.
Yeah, and it's very difficult in those scenarios to have some easy answers, and in many cases, it's a case of looking at literally all options, however unpalatable they actually are. Just a little bit of relief to some business owners. Obviously, on the plus side is the government has ordered some form of hiatus in effect to a lot of businesses. So if they do find financially they're a little bit strapped, a lot of the pressure should be taken off a little bit, because especially to do with finance companies, at the end of the day, a bit of wriggle room is being allowed to help support smaller businesses at the moment, and also through the VAT scheme where there's been an agreement about deferral of VAT and things like that. They may not sound like big things in their own right, but for example, ourselves as a case in point, I think we're due to pay about £5,000 of VAT as part of this quarter. Well, the government has actually said, you don't need to worry about paying that today. And effectively, that's free money, because that doesn't belong to you, right? It belongs to the government. Obviously, there's things like that which obviously do help. But yeah, so I don't know what.
Yeah, I just noticed Renato's had a comment there about my free offer, and I think we'll come back to that soon. But just in short, the reason for that situation was, I've been told, really sorry. We love the relationship with you. We want to continue it into the very long term, but for the next 3 months, we've got to put you on hold because we're furloughing people out there. There's kind of the message it sends to them, and we just want to protect the business and make sure we've not got lots and lots of cash flowing out. So, caring about them, if that's genuinely where they are, I made the offer that I'd actually rather be doing something with them to support them than to drop them all together, and obviously keep that dialogue going. And as a consequence, they agreed that rather than have me do something for free, that they would pay me something, which was kind, really. And so that was that sort of approach. But I'm thinking, I think, Rupert, we're talking about, I do believe you have to look at you in these circumstances and make sure that you're in the right state every day to operate. I've been meditating in the morning to get myself into a very productive state, which I found very helpful. But I also think you've got to look at the market, and you've got to look at your products, haven't you? Really, really sort of carefully. So, I mean, how do you reevaluate your products and your markets, and consider whether you do need to do a pivot right now to meet what might be a demand today, which maybe wasn't a demand a few weeks ago?
Yes, there's a really interesting one with that particular one. Just a little bit of an example with ourselves. Obviously, we were running quite a bit in the way of physical events in London. So we found in February, March, the event we were doing with Metrobank was cancelled at the last minute, understandably so. And obviously, we had to cancel a series of workshops in February, March as well. And but there's lots of other businesses as well, which, especially if they're events-based organisations, where a lot of things have to be put on hold. Now, fortunately, in our particular case, we'd already put a lot of our service delivery online anyway through using Zoom video conferencing and all these other good things which are actually out there. So the harm to us in that sense has been relatively marginal. The people which I feel really sorry for are obviously the retailers in particular, and those in the travel industry, because those sectors are going to take a long time to come back. Someone like ourselves, for example, would probably come back pretty quickly, because as the market returns, you should see quite a big bounce, as it were. But if you're a retailer, unfortunately, it's played into the likes of Google and Amazon and others, because everything's gone even more online. A lot of those retailers, smaller shops, I suspect, will probably not come through on the other side. So I don't think the effect is going to be particularly good on the high street. So what it means in those cases, one way of doing a partial pivot is at least to move part of the business online, and trying to look at certain industry sectors which are performing very well at the moment, and perform very well in scenarios where there is massive market disruption, or at times where perhaps cash flow generally is a little bit tight. So it's really about looking at your own business and seeing what you can move around with the minimum amount of disruption, which is something relatively easy for you to do, which is going to be very much on trend for where the market is now, but also where it's going to be moving ahead over the next 3 to 6 months.
I just thank you, Farron, for great mindfulness app, 10%.com. So anybody's interested there, I've been doing something by Nikki J. Owen on Bandcamp. So if you Google, so go to Bandcamp and put Nikki J. Owen in. It's a breathing process, and I think you may find a website there as well. But I think it's absolutely brilliant, lovely music as well. So I'd recommend having a look at those. You can listen to them for a few times for free. So Rupert, do you think you should consider adapting your offer to something that might be needed for people in the marketplace right now? You talk about sort of cash and cash flow there, but should we be looking to change our products or our service offering?
Yes, it's interesting with that. I mean, for example, one of the ways, just to share with everyone here on this call how we've looked to change things, is, again, a lot of this was already in the works anyway, but for ourselves, it's about being much more of a membership organization, which is there for its members. So, for example, this is very much a precursor to a lot of these, these live streams, which are actually, from a technical point of view, it's a little bit nerve-wracking, but actually it's available to us all, thank goodness. But also you've got some of the best platforms out there which are available for free or very low cost. So if you look at Facebook as a case in point, and also YouTube, which we're streaming over right now along with Periscope, it's pretty easy to set up a closed Facebook group, and you can make people feel really valued and important, share lots of value through that as well. And that's something where you can do a lot back. And then, of course, from our point of view, what we've then looked at doing is how we can run regular closed events as well to share value. But a lot of that as well can be applied to many other businesses as well. So if you're a coach, trainer, or mentor, as case in point, you've probably got a mass amount of talent and skill and value to share. The only one word of warning I would just say is that there's actually a massive amount of content out there. In fact, the market is actually almost saturated with it. So it's about being very, very different. So, if you were the biggest competitor out there, actually in many ways is YouTube. If you want to find out how to do something, just put it in the search box in YouTube. Invariably, people are sharing lots of value up front for free. And a lot of coaches are putting stuff online, which is really good. But how can you make your content or whatever you've got really be different? How can you share more value? If you've got products and services, what can you do which is going to be much more in demand now or in the future than it has been in before? What do you need to put in place to change that?
Yeah, I've just been on a webinar as a company I'm very closely aligned with and friends with is Engagement Multiplier, who have engagement tools. And what they've done is they've created a free tool for people to offer to their clients to be able to do a survey for engagement at home. But outside of that, they create a whole package of content for consultants and collaborators who utilize that model to then be able to take to clients to help their clients to improve the way they do meetings, to be able to improve the way that they develop fun in the organization virtually, to kind of energize to run more effective meetings. And what the consultants can then do is go and share that with clients on a free basis. They may get paid for doing that, but they're kind of equipping other people and equipping their clients with some new tools that will help them through. And I think that jumps onto the next point, which is about looking at the actions you can take now that will really have you remembered by your customers forever. So the aim of doing something like that is maybe right now we're going to be finding ourselves a little bit surviving while we go through this particular period. But maybe when the lockdown sort of eases and people are back operating, by doing all of this, we can end up being front of mind with people and potentially then start to really ramp up and increase our revenue and earnings. So that's why I think it's a really special time at the moment. It's a bit of taking a look. I agree. It's a bit of taking a look at yourself and how you do things, but also a look at your model and how maybe you can pivot to offer people things that add a lot of value, and then you're very much remembered and front of mind for the help you've given, I think. So what are your thoughts, Rupert, on that? How do you think you can be remembered by your customers forever through this period? How can you really utilize it such that they have a special place in their hearts for you once this is over?
Yes, I think it's quite often the very small things that you can do for people make a massive difference, and it doesn't necessarily need to always be that much. So it's really interesting. I just had a conversation with someone today as a case in point, and we use video email quite a bit. So some of you may have actually even received one or two of those in the past. And but what people quite often come back and they say, look, actually that message you gave a bit earlier on had a really personal effect. First of all, very few people do it, but to her, it connected with her at a very personal level. Now, is that difficult to do? No, it's not. There's platforms out there, and obviously if anyone wants to know, we can share that as a good tool to use, which you can use, and it's incredibly easy to just send a very short personal message to someone and remind them that you're there and you're there for them at time of need. And quite often it's the good news as well, it's a lot quicker than sending an email. If you have to write a long email, it might take you 20 or 30 minutes to draft it. Well, you can perhaps say the same thing in 3 or 4 minutes as through a video message. So why not be different? Why not be memorable for all the right reasons, if I can put it that way?
And is that better than? I think that's really great. And is that better than picking up the phone and calling them and seeing how they are?
I'd be honest. I wouldn't say it's better. I think it's just one of the tools in the toolbox. So one of the things I would say is that as much as possible, have a conversation with someone regularly. Pick up the phone, speak to them, find out how they are. If you can't get hold of them, perhaps just send a very short text and just simply say, "It'd be great to catch up." If you still can't have hold of them, then possibly use something like a video message. But in fact, I think a number of you may have actually had a video message yesterday as part of an email we sent out generally. And it's because, as many of you probably know, I'm quite good at writing long emails, and not everyone likes receiving long emails. So I thought I'd do something different and send out a video message to everyone. So it's about being different, being memorable, and using all the different mediums and tools which are available with us, which does also include social media, Facebook and LinkedIn as well, as part of all that mix.
Yeah, I just discovered this week of one of my a very successful contact in my network, the fascinating guy who's really suffered with COVID recently, and I hadn't realised that, so I dropped him discovered that, so I dropped him a text just inquiring how he was, and he came back to me saying, "Thanks, I'm much better, but it's time we caught up, so we've got a call in a couple of weeks," which was really nice, because he's a super connected, and we have a connection. So I think it's finding these moments too, isn't it, to connect, see how people are, and then use them to reconnect.
Yes. Yeah.
You're right, Farron. Zoom calls are good. They're interactive. I've been using Zoom an awful lot of late. I think I've had 15 Zoom meetings this week, and 10 of them were coaching. I've been coaching sessions in small ones, but it's a great tool. It's a great tool. So video messaging links. Jackie mentioned, and Drake.
Do you the link for it, Muriel? Basically, if you go to there's a site called BombBomb. Okay, there are a number of them out there. If you just don't type the word bomb in it by itself, because you might have the GCHQ actually monitoring your emails after that. But you just think of the word bomb twice and then put .com on the end. That's the way to remember it. But it's a very good service. There are other companies out there as well. So, Chris, I suppose we could go through some of the chat messages, but which I can obviously flag up here and bring them on the screen.
Yeah, because I'm not sure I can maybe see exactly what you can see.
Yeah. But is there another question we need to cover off? Have we covered most of the points off? Do you feel?
Farron's made a point asking how people are great as long as they're authentic. Absolutely. We don't ask how people are if we don't mean it. So I completely with you. It's got to come from the heart and be very genuine. And I think you've got real genuine concern for people, and you genuinely care. Then do it. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I was concerned about him. I was worried about him because I'd heard he'd been really poorly in intensive care. So, I wanted to find out how he was, and I've been putting lots of calls. I've put a couple of calls into people who've lost people this week as well, and reconnected with them. And it's very, very sad. So it's a nasty thing, and we need to give all our the support that we can, even if it's in our immediate circle, or whether there's a broader opportunity that we find that we can have an impact. And one of my friends is currently had 2,000 items of PPE from China delivered to his house through his contacts. He's giving them out to care homes and hospitals, and also food at the moment, which is just and food parcels. I think he's got several thousand food parcels that are being delivered to people on the front line, and he's doing that off his own back, and got the Scottish government to support him. A guy called David Fox Pitt, MBE, amazing
Brilliant.
Man. Yeah, I love it.
No, so
maybe for
you come across stories like that, isn't it? Muriel, is there a few people on the feed who've fed some points in or some questions? Because I can bring them up here if you like.
No, nothing at all. I've got a couple of people messaging me with questions because they're actually on the call. They can't see us, but they can hear us.
Right.
So they're WhatsApping and messaging me any questions they've got.
Okay, great. You do. If there's some which need to be fed through, Muriel, just let's try and answer some of those. Let's see whether we can pick a couple of people out here as part of this as well. With Farron, it's really nice for you to be able to interact in this way. Let me see if I can just share your comment there just for a moment, Farron. In fact, what you're sharing is absolutely fantastic. Farron certainly should know. They've got years of experience in the armed forces, and gives back in a massive way at the moment in a range of different respects. So we've got Malcolm. So you've just switched to YouTube. Let's bring it up here. Right. It's interesting with Facebook. So you had difficulty logging on. So Muriel, did you help Malcolm with that, or did you fund that through by himself?
I think I referred you, didn't I, Malcolm, to that Facebook?
And YouTube, yeah. What we'll do is we'll make 2 links available next week, so people have got 2 different ways of joining. I think it might be a good way of doing it.
Yeah.
So Renato is paying about vertical head movement. You're funny, Renato. Renato is someone we got to know very well over the last 4 or 5 months, and always adds an element of humour to every call as well. And Farron's shared about Simon Sinek, covers the huddle. And actually, Chris, I've got a bit of a shout out for you, and also Michael Romling and Farron, actually, because you talked about was it the Chimp Paradox, the book, The Chimp Paradox? Mm. And I've actually just downloaded that from Audible, and I'd highly recommend that to people. I've already getting quite hooked on it, by the way. So it's worth thinking about at the moment. Just trying to pick out a few other things that people have said.
We've got a few questions for today, Rupert, and I'm just wondering whether there's one here from John. I'm not sure of his surname. My income's dried up. I've tried everything, but nothing's working. I'm worried I won't have a business in 6 months' time. I mean, is there any thoughts on that?
Right. Now that is a difficult one. I mean, in that scenario, unfortunately, this is not something I like to actively encourage. But when you're in that, when you've got those level of difficulties, it really is about one of survival in that scenario. And what you have to do at all costs is obviously preserve cash. Now, I know I'm stating the bleeding obvious, but at the end of the day, the important thing is to make sure you and your family do come through on the other side. And sorry, just trying to move this chat off the window, which I figured out how to do that now. Sorry, come back to it when again. So if there are certain people which you can delay paying at the moment, then obviously with a few caveats, you always have to be careful not to be showing preference over one creditor versus another. But HMRC, for example, have given this bit of relief over payment of VAT. Then you take advantage of that scheme that's available at the moment to give you a bit of relief, because that retains cash in your business. Obviously, there is more information about this new scheme coming out, which is announced earlier on this week. I certainly would wait for that. There's a lot of marketing you can do for free online. We've got LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter. We could get all this message out there for free. It's about interacting with many people as you can in terms of reaching out. And as well, if your business model is very strong, if you feel you've got a very strong business, then it could be the time to reach out to friends and family as well and look at whether there's other forms of funding available. So, there are certain aspects of your business which are sound, but being very badly hit by what's going on. It may be possible to raise some for equity investment. Now, it's a bit more difficult for obvious reasons at the moment, but there are things like the Seed Enterprise Investment Scheme, which are available out there. And it's very attractive to investors, because investors can get up to a 50% tax break, and 96% of the investment is underwritten by the government, in effect. So if you've got a really strong proposition, don't be frightened of going out there and getting your message out there in terms of how you can help others. And we've also got crowdfunding platforms as well as source of finance.
Can I make a suggestion to you, John? If you're listening to this, contact. I'm very happy you send an email to me, or at chris@chriscooper.co.uk, or to Rupert at Business Growth Bureau. And I don't know what you say, Rupert, but I'm certainly happy to spend half an hour with you on Zoom and just understand your specific situation, just see if we can give you some pointers, really, if you want to do that. Yeah,
100% agree. Farron's made a really good point about mortgage holidays. There are 3-month mortgage holidays available from your lender, and also with things like credit card companies as well. None of us like doing this, but the governments have ordered the credit companies to be much more lenient at the moment and give up to sort of 3 months worth of grace. So if things are really tight, whatever you do, preserve cash in your household and in your business, and then if necessary, reinvest, but reinvest in the right things. And actually, that does touch on another point very briefly, which was something which I meant to mention, and that's what I regard as what's good money and bad money in terms of investing. At times like this, if you're investing in something which is a consumable, which is going to give you very little in the way of return, in effect, that's a very bad use of money. If you're investing in something which is going to help you put yourself in a much stronger position tomorrow, and that can be investing in a piece of equipment if you can get finance to cover it. It could also be in some form of marketing or support to generate lead flow of opportunities into your business. That potentially is good money because that's investing in the future of your business. So it's very important to understand that's part of it, if it makes sense. I think, Pradeep, you made a point there about to review your monthly expenses and thoroughly cut unnecessary drain in your financial resources. 100% agree with that. And Anthony, I think you're flagging something up there as well. Some comments or questions for the team. I'm not quite sure what you mean by that, Anthony. Could you expand on that a little bit, and we'll see if we can bring that up.
We're still writing.
Okay.
I agree, Pradeep. I think I've sort of cut about 15% of regular monthly cost out of my business, and I've probably so far reinvested 5% back on that into things that will generate return.
Yeah.
I think, you know, that's it's amazing actually when you look at all the subscriptions and things you've got and you think, don't look at that, don't use that, and that's pretty unnecessary. Do we really need that? And you can soon take out little components and elements, and they add up to a fair bit. But then I think, then you've got a bit then to reinvest if you need to into things that will move you forward. Anthony, where are you? Where are you, my friend? Have you got some comments and questions for us? We know, just writing them now. Good.
Yeah. Oh, is it? Okay. Well, let's go to Seb's question then, Rupert.
I'm just trying to find
Seb,
out.
He's asking what marketing is working at the moment and what will give the strongest return on investment.
Oh, right. Now, that's an interesting one. Well, to answer that fully, I probably need to understand which sectors someone's actually in. But, for example, if Seb is in the business-to-business space, LinkedIn is working really, really well at the moment. And I think it applies generally to social media, because what we're finding is the engagement rates are really, really high on LinkedIn. Because a lot of people are at home, if you send someone a message on LinkedIn, they tend to reply. They also have a bit more time to spend on that. And with a big caveat, it's not about selling. It is actually about engaging conversations. And then what you'll find is some of those people will be able to want to take this further forward later on. Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, so not so much Twitter, but Facebook and Instagram can be great as well. And I don't know about you, but I bought some things through ads on Instagram before now. Quite often things I've regretted actually, but that's another matter. And then on Facebook, very much the community feel on Facebook if you engage with it in the right way. So I'm not sure I've answered Seb's question there, but if that's helped. I think Michael Shepherd is asking something here. So, right. So during our regular conference, we actually address how best to work with our partners and customers to encourage them to work with us. Right. Immediate focus, bottom line, free products, stable studio, in-house development. Yeah. And Michael, I think that picks up very nicely almost what Chris was saying earlier on, doesn't it? Because in effect, what Chris was saying is, look, I realize as a customer, you may not be in a position to spend money with us now, but actually what I'm going to do is share lots of value at this point, and at some future date, they may well become a customer. Right, so Anthony, Chris, do you have a question, Anthony's question, do you have any thoughts on this particular part?
Well, okay. Comes to Michael Romling's point about, tomorrow's a mystery. I think it's surprising. I think there's always, I certainly find the more you put yourself out there and the more people you talk to, the more opportunities you kind of see. And it might be that in some market segments, there might be more opportunity than others. You've mentioned there'll be some like, transport that might struggle, although I've been speaking to this last week of the MD of a big transport company, and they see opportunity significantly when they open. I can't go into the details, but I think maybe looking for sectors that are flourishing, and post coronavirus, we will need to move people around. We will need to basically, services like facilities management, like you, Anthony, will be important. So I think it's probably looking at segments that I'm encouraging people to do, is to look at segments where there may be more opportunity, rather than necessarily just serving the ones that they currently operate in. I think that's what I'm looking at. I don't know what your thoughts are, Rupert.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. And I think, Anthony, the point you made yesterday, now, is a bit spot on. I have to say, Anthony, something, a little secret I'll share with you, but also with everyone on this session, is you were a light of inspiration yesterday. Several calls I had yesterday, yours was one of them. I also spoke to Farron yesterday. It was a highly inspirational call. And, the thing is, your mindset is exactly the right place. So the first thing you said to me is that actually it's about reaching out to all our existing clients and everyone else, seeing how we can support and help them. It's not so much what's in it for yourself. That's what I think what you're saying at the moment. You just want to be there to help others. And Anthony's got a great business. I can tell you that's going to go great guns over the next 3-5 years. And then Anthony, you've also shared this, if I can bring this up too. Do you think taking advantage of the C word and changing your model or creating service? Yeah, it's a really, we've had to be very sensitive to that, actually. And you'll notice we deliberately didn't use the word coronavirus in any of our material to do with that, because I think if it's used inappropriately, then it can be actually more harmful than good. And
can I just say, I don't think it's about taking advantage. I think it's about, I think the opportunities for business will come through just generally caring for people and offering them things that they need. And I don't think that's opportunistic. I think it's about you've got to adapt because you've got to survive. But I think we don't see this as being opportunistic or taking advantage or trying to beat somebody. It's about actually putting ourselves in a position where, in the hearts and minds of our customers, seeking new opportunity where we can help them and add mutual value. So I think I would say just be careful with the language. Don't look to exploit, just look to keep helping.
Yeah, and actually, Stuart Honey, we missed this earlier on, actually. Stuart, we've spoken, I think it was the day before as well. And that story would tell us about your local community. It was great. If we got a little bit more time, I'd perhaps try and bring you on this program to talk about that a little bit more. But this goes back to the point you were making, where local retailers have clubbed together to form their own distribution network. It's about 5 or 6 businesses clubbed together as part of the local community to actually help them this time. And that was very powerful. That's an example. It's those type of businesses which are going to really come through on the other side and win. And the great thing is they're providing an excellent contribution to their local community. Interesting enough, something that hasn't been picked up by the media yet, I'm surprised it hasn't, but supermarkets. My wife was saying the other day, if you go into a supermarket at the moment, you don't see many special offers at the moment. And it'd be really interesting, although their cost base in some ways have probably gone higher because of having to put more people and social distancing. On the other hand, I think supermarkets maybe use a bit of an opportunity to fill their coffers up a little bit. So I think it is an opportunity for local retailers, especially the food retailers, where they can club together and almost form community groups. That could be a really exciting thing moving forwards. Lisa, I think you've made a point here. Let me just so I can bring you up here. That's that's a really good point, Lisa. So thanks for that. And then Pradeep, you've mentioned here established clients. Yeah, and officers work for them. 100% agree. Lovely. Stuart very kindly is offered to speak with everyone over the next 4 or 6 weeks. And Farron is going to be a great contributor to this program. About, I think it's first week of June, we've got you booked in, Farron, isn't it? Thank you very much. Lovely. Well, I think we've almost call it a wrap. There's a little bit more information. I'd just like to share a couple of things. And obviously, if any of you have got any sort of closing questions or points you'd like to make, please do type in the chat window. We will try and come to those. Just bear me a second. I'll just press a couple of buttons over here. So there we go. And I've got to flip to my other laptop as we speak. You can see that. Bear me a second. Right. Now, just a very quick, again, a bit more of sharing of value in terms of what next. Just bear me a second. There we go. There's a quick graphic of our website. For those of you who haven't booked in for multiple weeks on the live streams, how you can do that, if you go to the events drop down here, choose that one there. Now, this will be the same way you booked in this week, but you actually have the option of booking in multiple weeks. Now, we only made this change this week, but if you were to press this button here, you'll probably notice that when you select the week, just select the time zone, let's say you wanted the 7th, you can choose continue, select the 1, or you can add individual weeks, or you can choose recurring. And if you choose recurring, there's a big benefit because it will actually save you having to register each week. So it'll save you a bit of time, okay? Now, if you also want to look at previous live streams, okay, this section here, so that was under TV videos, previous weekly live streams. And if you, sorry, I'm trying to use my MacBook here. On the extreme right-hand side, you can bring up a list of previous programs. So last week we had Steve Hyland on, and so some of you will remember him from the show last week. Very entertaining. He's very professional in the way he tends to operate. He's produced over 300 business TV shows. I think, Chris, you're a little bit ahead of that on 400 radio shows, is it? Very close to, Chris?
Yeah, close to, yeah.
Yeah, so very, very impressive. Steve is highly inspirational, so you may want to look at that. And we refer to Michael Romling as well. That's one there about the reptilian part of the brain. You may well really enjoy that. For those of you who do want to explore things a little bit further as well, if you were to go to the homepage of the site, and there's a button there where you can click on free training, that discusses different market opportunities, gives lots of market insights. And also we explain how to get the best use out of LinkedIn as part of that. And you're very welcome to complete a 12-pillar diagnostic and then book in a call with me. And equally, if you have wanted to engage with either myself, Chris, or Muriel afterwards, sorry, I've just pressed the wrong button there. Just give me a second. If we go on to the next couple of slides, next slide. It's not that one. We'll talk about bounce back loans next week. And we're going to come on to what we're going to be covering next week in just a second. But in terms of contact details, if you want to talk about anything to do with business elevation, Chris is your man in particular. And obviously his contact details are there. Obviously, you're very welcome to reach out for us on those addresses. Now, Chris, you wanted to share a little bit about this amazing person as well, didn't you?
Yes, next week. Neil Lawton and I have been... Rupert sometimes refers to me as respectfully rude to him, and I do sort of hold no punches sometimes. And Neil, we met a number of years ago, probably 7 or 8 years ago, coming off a speech, having spoken to 700 people, and happened to suggest to him some ways that he could improve his presentation. And he's and rather than pushed me away, he found that very amusing, and we've become great friends, actually. And Neil's an amazing man. We're going to talk about the power of resilience. Obviously, with COVID and everything, we need that in spades. Neil's been through the ups and downs of life. He's set up a business and sold it to Balfour Beatty for many millions. So he has a lovely life in many ways, and he utilizes that to generate huge amounts of money for charity. He's went through SAS training. He's climbed Everest with his close friend Bear Grylls, and also if you ever saw Bear get above Everest in a microlight, then Neil was the team leader for that. He's got multi-record breaking. Here he is holding the highest dinner party ever in the world. And just so many stories and situations. He's nearly died several times during his exploits. So we're going to talk about resilience with him next week, get some ideas around how we can be resilient personally, and also resilient when it comes to moving businesses forward, and resilient in terms of, I guess, our own kind of productivity. So hopefully it will be a lively session next week with Neil Lawton.
Yeah, it really just known, Chris, actually, how high was that's a particular picture was taken? Roughly, what was the altitude at that point?
I'm not sure. It was above. It was above base camp,
So
So I'm not quite sure where that was. Probably, I don't know, 15,000 feet or meters. I'm trying to think now what Everest is. It's probably, but it was the highest actually. In fact, with Neil on, I think it was this trip actually. A bit later on, he climbed up Everest, and I'd introduced him to a guy called, another friend called Derry Llewellyn Davis, and unfortunately they got stuck with the big earthquake in Nepal, and they went missing for 8 days. So I kind of imagine them sitting there cursing me, and knowing his wife and family, was rather concerned and worried myself. But unfortunately, they did come out unscathed.
Right. Well, yeah, that's. I mean, it must be very scary in those circumstances. And Chris, which one is Neil in this picture?
He's on the right-hand side with the champagne.
Ah, a sensible man. Not drinking it though, not yet. Not to that point. I love it. Now, just want to pick just a couple of other comments very quickly. Renato, you shared a point just now. Very interesting that. So thank you very much for sharing that. And Will Harvey, William, nice to see you on this call. William, some of you may remember him because he was on board the Lord Nelson, which was a ship on the Thames a couple of years ago, taking all the official photographs for us. So even for the ships we're screening out for service, it's really interesting actually. And I think, Chris, you and I were talking about just a couple of days ago from a certain service provider out there where the service levels have gone basically right down the pan, to the extent they won't even answer their phones anymore. It's all gone via chat now, hasn't it?
They want to talk to me now. I've cancelled my service, Rupert.
Sorry?
They want to talk to me now. I've cancelled my service, Rupert. I won't mention their name, but they're a broadband supplier and they talk a lot.
Okay. Opportunity there for Renato. He obviously needs to be on that one, I think. So Farron is answering the question there. It's there's the answer: 5,380 meters. So
yeah,
it's funny. What's 16, 17,000 feet? Is it? I think, give or take. Karen, I've seen your message there. I'm not sure whether you're referring to the video today or whether it's a little video message I sent you a bit earlier on this afternoon. But no doubt you will tell me afterwards. So
Rupert, yeah. Could you quickly touch on not using the Zoom platform anymore? I know 1 or 2 people tried to get in via Zoom. Of course, it wouldn't happen. Can you just go through that?
Yeah, it's really interesting. Let me just switch to go back to normal so we can all see each other properly again. There we go. It's a bit better. Yeah, it's interesting actually because Zoom for web conferences is really, really good. And it's very robust. And for webinars, it's also very good. One of the reasons we made the switch, as for those of you who were with us last week, was the fact that we wanted, webinar technology has been around for quite a while, but I don't think Zoom has necessarily moved terribly well with the times because it's very robust. But in real terms, a lot of people now are moving much more into live streaming. And you'll probably notice today, whilst we've fumbled around a little bit because we're trying to get used to the technology, the fact that the way we can bring up people who are raising questions, flag the message up on the screen, the way you can also, you haven't seen it today, but so what you can do with using some of this latest technology, and just give a tiny bit of flavor of it here. So for example, I could have bought this banner up here earlier on. I could have bought something like that up there. This is all built into the platform itself. So the technology is there if I wanted to bring up some other areas of branding as well. So the countdown time is all integrated within the platform itself. Zoom is very good, but it's also probably a little bit more, I can't switch that off now actually, it's probably a little bit more geared up for the core, the larger business sector as far as webinars are concerned. It's probably not so good if you want to do a lot of live streaming and things like that. At the end of the day, we need to be where potential customers are and engage with those. And they are on the platforms like LinkedIn, they are on Facebook, they are on YouTube, they are on Periscope. And that's really where we want to be predominantly engaging. So does that answer that question, do you think, Mira?
Well, no, it was really for people that booked maybe last week, the week before, they would have booked a block on Zoom.
Yes.
Yeah, and some of them have got that old Zoom link and tried to get in using Zoom. But we're not using the Zoom platform for our Thursday lives anymore.
Yeah. we did actually email everyone. In fact, Muriel, you tried to phone everyone as well, didn't you?
Yeah, I spoke to virtually everybody and emailed.
Yeah. So, but broadly speaking, you'll notice we cancelled that off for those who were registered, and we then reissued an invite via the Acuity scheduling system. So you should, if you previously registered for recurring events, it should have been carried across here. But what I'd very much encourage you to do, if you don't want to miss these next week, just go into our website and block book in through using the recurring option there, and the system will automatically remind you each week, so it'll take care of that. And you certainly don't want to miss next week's one. Neil sounds absolutely fascinating. So I'm trying to switch this banner off now. I can't figure out how to do it, but anyway, I think you get the point. Chris, any sort of closing points as we should do as part of our wrap up today?
No, just to wish everybody well, and keep on moving forward. Keep on looking after yourself and your loved ones. Thank you, Michael. Highest dinner party, 7,020 meters. But hopefully Neil will help us move to new heights. The scariest film I've ever seen was when they went try to get above Everest in a microlight, which they did. There's all sorts of. If you Google Neil, you'll find there's a huge amount of things he's done. But yeah, keep on working day in, day out. Remember, today's a gift, like Michael Romelling says, and we'll look forward to talking to you again next week. And always delighted to hear from you as well. So thank you for joining today. Really appreciate it.
Good. Well, thank you very much, everyone. Do message us afterwards if you've got any questions. Muriel, myself, and Chris, of course, we always be pleased to help. And thanks very much for joining in today. Okay.
Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.